The moment Emma opened the front door, her heart skipped a beat. Standing there, with a familiar yet unfamiliar smile, was someone she hadn't seen in over a decade. His presence felt like a jolt of electricity, stirring memories she hadn't touched in years. "Tom?" she asked, voice trembling slightly. He nodded, a soft grin on his face. "Emma, it's been a long time." She stepped aside, motioning him in. Inside, the air felt heavier than usual, almost charged. She could hear the soft hum of the fridge and the quiet ticking of the clock, but her mind was elsewhere, replaying the times they had all spent together years ago. Emma's husband, David, appeared from the kitchen carrying a mug of coffee. He froze mid-step, eyes locking on Tom in a way that made Emma's stomach twist. There was a flash of something she couldn't read. Nostalgia? Unease? Something else entirely. "David, you remember Tom, right?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. David blinked, a tight smile forming. "Of course. Tom. It's been, 15 years?" Tom laughed softly, a sound that filled the room with an odd warmth. "Yeah, about that. Time flies." Emma noticed how David's eyes lingered on him, searching, measuring. There was a tension there she didn't quite understand, a flicker of something buried deep. They all sat down in the living room, the conversation starting light, catching up on work, mutual friends, and life in the city. But Emma couldn't shake the feeling that there was an undercurrent she wasn't supposed to see. David's hand trembled slightly as he reached for his coffee. Tom spoke about his new job, his travels, but Emma sensed a careful choice of words, a subtle hesitation. Finally, she decided to break the tension. "It's really good to see you again, Tom. I never imagined you'd just show up like this." Tom's smile softened. "I know. I wasn't sure if it was the right time, but I thought, why not? I needed to see old friends, and, well, I had to come by." Emma glanced at David. His expression was unreadable, a mixture of surprise and something heavier, almost like a shadow had passed over him. She leaned closer to Tom, trying to read the familiar warmth behind his eyes. But that warmth was mixed with something else, something she couldn't quite identify. The clock ticked on, and outside, the sky was painted in shades of deep orange and purple. Emma noticed a nervous edge to David's demeanor. He seemed restless, shifting in his chair, glancing at Tom as if expecting something Emma couldn't name. As the evening wore on, Emma tried to keep the conversation going, but her mind kept circling back to that look on David's face. What had Tom said or done that caused that fleeting confusion? She felt a twinge of worry, even though logically she knew it was probably nothing. Still, the unease lingered like a shadow over their cozy living room. Finally, Tom stood to leave, stretching slightly. "I should get going," he said softly. "It was really nice catching up with you both." David stood with him, extending a hand that Tom shook firmly. Their eyes met, and for a fleeting second, Emma saw it again, that strange, unreadable expression. As the door clicked shut behind him, Emma exhaled, feeling a mix of relief and lingering tension. She turned to David, searching for answers. What was that look about? David hesitated, his lips pressed together. Then he shook his head, forcing a small smile. "It's nothing, just memories, I guess." Emma wasn't convinced, but she decided not to press further. Not yet. There was something about Tom's return that unsettled her, and she couldn't shake the feeling that this evening was just the beginning of something unexpected. If you're enjoying this story so far, please like the video and subscribe for more heartfelt tales. As Emma went to the kitchen to pour herself a glass of water, she caught herself thinking about that look one more time. There was more there than mere nostalgia, and for some reason, it scared her. The next morning, Emma woke to the soft hum of the dishwasher and the smell of toast. David was unusually quiet, sipping his coffee at the kitchen counter. He hadn't mentioned Tom once since the previous night. Emma tried to act casual, but curiosity gnawed at her. "Do you want to talk about last night?" she asked, keeping her tone light. David shook his head. "It's nothing, really. Just old memories, like I said." Emma studied him carefully. His jaw was tight, and his hands were wrapped around the mug as if he needed the warmth to hold himself together. Something about him seemed off, but she didn't push further. Later, while Emma was tidying up the living room, she found a small envelope tucked under the coffee table. Her name was written in careful, familiar handwriting. She opened it to find a folded note. "Emma, seeing you again reminded me of everything we shared back then. I hope this finds you well. Tom." Emma's heart raced. It wasn't anything inappropriate, but there was a tenderness in the words, a nostalgia that pulled at her chest. She held it close for a moment before carefully placing it back on the table. When David came back into the room, he noticed the envelope. His expression tightened, a flicker of something she couldn't name passing through his eyes. "Was that for you?" he asked quietly. Emma nodded. "Yes, it's just a note, nothing more." David didn't say anything, but she could feel the tension simmering beneath the surface. He left for work shortly after, and Emma found herself alone with her thoughts, wondering what had really been going on between them back then. By mid-afternoon, Emma decided to go for a walk to clear her mind. The streets were quiet, and the cool breeze did little to calm the flutter in her chest. She kept thinking about Tom's visit, the way David had looked at him, the subtle hesitation in his voice. It didn't make sense. They had been married for over 5 years, and David had never hidden anything from her before. Later that evening, David returned home earlier than usual. His coat was damp from a sudden drizzle, and he carried a file from work. Emma noticed the tightness in his shoulders. "Rough day?" she asked, trying to ease the tension. David glanced at her, then at the envelope still on the coffee table. "Something like that," he said, voice low. He didn't elaborate. Emma wanted to press, but she held back, sensing that he wasn't ready to talk. Instead, she prepared dinner, the silence between them filled with unspoken questions. After dinner, as they settled on the couch, David finally spoke. "I didn't expect to see Tom again, not after so many years." "I know, it was surprising for me too." He looked at her, searching her eyes. "He brings back memories, some I haven't thought about in a long time." Emma's stomach tightened. "Memories? What kind of memories?" David hesitated, then sighed. "Just childhood memories. Things that shaped me before we met. It's complicated." Emma reached out, touching his hand gently. "I understand, but if something's bothering you, you don't have to carry it alone." David looked away for a moment, then back at her with a softness that made her heart ache. "I know. It's just seeing him again after all this time, it stirred up feelings I didn't expect." Emma squeezed his hand. "We'll get through it. Together." But even as she said it, a small part of her worried. There was something between David and Tom that she didn't fully understand. Something unspoken, lingering in the quiet moments. That night, Emma lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the envelope and Tom's words. She didn't want to admit it, but a sense of unease had settled in her chest. David loved her, she knew that. But there was a part of his past that now felt closer, almost too close, and she wasn't sure if it was just nostalgia or something deeper. Sleep didn't come easily. Her mind kept replaying the evening. Tom's smile, David's hesitant glances, the note. Questions she didn't have answers to kept circling, and in the back of her mind, a quiet warning whispered, "Some things from the past, once reopened, don't close easily." The next morning, the doorbell rang. Emma opened it to find Tom standing there again, umbrella in hand, looking apologetic yet strangely certain. David stepped out of the kitchen, and his expression froze. The same unreadable look appeared, confusion mixed with something Emma couldn't name. Tom's presence at the door made the air feel thick. Emma stepped aside to let him in, but she could feel the tension radiating from David. His eyes flicked to Tom, then to her, then back again, as if he were trying to solve a puzzle he didn't want to face. "Emma, I hope I'm not intruding," Tom said softly, lowering his umbrella. "You're welcome," Emma replied, keeping her voice steady. She couldn't help but notice the familiar warmth in his smile, and a pang of nostalgia struck her unexpectedly. David finally spoke, his voice measured. "Tom, you didn't have to." "I know," Tom interrupted gently, "but I wanted to see you again. I've been in the area, and I thought, maybe it's time." Emma watched them carefully. There was a moment, a pause, that lasted just a heartbeat too long, where their eyes met. It was brief, almost imperceptible, but it made her heart thud in her chest. Something unspoken passed between them. Emma cleared her throat. "Why don't we sit in the living room? Coffee?" Tom nodded, following her gesture, while David trailed silently behind. The living room suddenly felt smaller. Emma poured the coffee and handed the cups around, trying to distract herself from the uneasy energy. "So, what's been going on all these years?" Emma asked, forcing casual conversation. Tom chuckled softly. "Life, work, the usual. But seeing David again, it brings back a lot." David took a slow sip of his coffee. "Yeah, it does." Emma noticed the way David's fingers tapped the edge of the mug, a rhythm she had never seen before. And when Tom laughed at something minor, David's eyes softened for a split second, and then, just as quickly, hardened again. "What's going on?" Emma finally asked, her voice quiet, almost afraid to hear the answer. David glanced at her, then at Tom. "It's complicated," he said. Tom leaned forward slightly. "David and we were close back in the day. Childhood friends. I guess I never realized how much he shaped who I became, and maybe I didn't appreciate it until now." Emma felt a tightness in her chest. "I understand, but why the hesitation last night? The look you gave him?" David hesitated, and for a moment, Emma feared he wouldn't answer. Then he spoke slowly, carefully. "Seeing him again, it stirred things I didn't expect. Memories, feelings, nostalgia, yes, but more than that. A part of my past I thought I'd left behind." Emma nodded, though unease twisted in her stomach. "I get that, but I need to know you're here, with me, now." David reached out, taking her hand. "Always. You're my present, my life. That hasn't changed." Still, the tension lingered. Emma could sense that Tom's visit wasn't just casual. There was an unspoken weight to it, a subtle pull that neither of them fully acknowledged. Over the next hour, they tried to relax, chatting about shared childhood memories, old school pranks, and mutual friends. Emma noticed David's shoulders gradually loosen, but she also noticed the way his eyes kept drifting to Tom, almost as if he were trying to decode something in his old friend's expression. Tom eventually glanced at his watch. "I should probably head out soon," he said, standing. David followed him to the door, and Emma stayed by the sofa, heart pounding. She overheard fragments of their conversation, soft, almost conspiratorial tones that made her pulse quicken. When Tom left, David returned inside, his expression guarded. He sank onto the sofa beside Emma and exhaled deeply. "I didn't expect him to stay in the city," he admitted. Emma rested her head on his shoulder. "It's okay, but something's different. I can feel it." David wrapped an arm around her, holding her close. "I know, I feel it too. It's just, seeing someone from your past can be jarring, but nothing will change what we have." Emma wanted to believe him. She did, but in the back of her mind, a whisper remained, persistent and unsettling. There was more to Tom's return than they were letting on. Later that night, Emma found herself staring at the envelope from the day before. Tom's note seemed harmless, but now, with today's visit, it felt like the first ripple of something bigger, something she couldn't yet see. David fell asleep beside her, his hand resting lightly on hers. Emma lay awake, listening to his steady breathing, but her mind kept circling back to Tom, the way he had looked at David, the subtle familiarity, and the small, almost imperceptible tension that lingered in the room long after he had left. The next morning, there was a message waiting on Emma's phone from an unknown number. It read simply, "Can we meet? I need to talk to you." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She didn't recognize the number, but something in the timing made her uneasy. She looked at David, who was still asleep, and felt a knot in her stomach tighten. Emma stared at the message for several minutes, her thumb hovering over the screen. Something about it felt urgent, yet she couldn't place why. The unknown number only deepened the unease that had been growing since Tom's visit. She glanced at David, still asleep, his face calm and untroubled. Part of her wanted to ignore it, pretend it wasn't there, but curiosity and a quiet sense of warning kept her fingers from letting the phone rest. By mid-morning, she decided she needed answers. She called the number cautiously. A familiar voice picked up almost immediately. "Emma, it's Tom." Her chest tightened. "Tom? Why didn't you just call me last night?" "I wanted to, but I didn't want to upset anyone," he admitted. "There's something I need to explain, something from the past that I never got the chance to say." Emma felt a shiver run down her spine. "The past?" she echoed. "Tom, I don't understand." "I know," he said softly. "Can we meet somewhere? Just you and me. I promise it's nothing bad, just important." Emma hesitated. She thought of David, of the tension she'd already sensed between them. "Where do you want to meet?" "Coffee shop on Maple Street? Around 1:30 p.m.? Emma agreed reluctantly. She knew she needed clarity, but a part of her feared what she might discover. At 1:30, she walked into the small cafe, scanning the room until she spotted Tom at a corner table. He looked up, offering a small, reassuring smile. "Emma, thank you for coming," he said quietly. "I know this is awkward." Emma nodded, taking a seat. "Just tell me what this is about." Tom sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Back when David and I were younger, before you came into the picture, there were things I never got to say, words left unsaid, feelings left unspoken. I've carried them for years, and seeing him again, it stirred them up." Emma felt her stomach tighten. "Feelings? What do you mean?" Tom's expression was gentle, almost pained. "Not like that. Nothing inappropriate. But he was my closest friend. We shared everything. Dreams, fears, mistakes. And over the years, I realized how much of who I am today is tied to those moments with him. When I saw him again, I just wanted to acknowledge that, to make peace with it." Emma exhaled slowly. Relief mingled with lingering worry. "So it's not more than that?" "No, absolutely not," Tom said firmly. "I would never cross that line. I just needed to clear the air. For both of us. That's all. Emma studied him for a long moment, searching for any trace of deception. She saw only sincerity and a quiet honesty that made her chest ache with the complexity of human connection. After a few more minutes, Tom stood. "Thank you for listening. I didn't want to bring tension into your marriage, Emma. I just needed to say it." Emma nodded, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. "I understand, Tom. Really, I do." Later, as she walked back home, her phone buzzed with a message from David. "How's your day going?" She smiled faintly, typing back quickly. "Good, just walked around a bit." When she entered the house, David was in the living room, scrolling through his phone. He looked up and smiled warmly. "How was your walk?" Emma hesitated for just a moment before replying. "It was fine. Got some clarity, actually." David raised an eyebrow. "Clarity?" Emma shook her head, forcing a small smile. "Just about the past. Nothing to worry about." David studied her for a moment, then nodded, seemingly accepting her answer. But Emma noticed the faint tension still lingering in his shoulders, a quiet shadow she couldn't yet name. That evening, they sat together on the couch, the room calm and quiet. Emma rested her head on David's shoulder, feeling the familiar comfort of his presence. Yet, even in that comfort, a small worry lingered. Tom's return, the notes, the message, it had all stirred something in her, something she hadn't anticipated. Emma stared at the window, watching the city lights flicker. She wanted to trust that everything was fine, but deep down, a sense of unease remained. Something about Tom's return had opened a door, and she wasn't sure it could be closed so easily. The night passed quietly, but Emma's mind stayed restless. She knew that Tom's visit had brought resolution to some questions, but also opened new ones. Questions about David, about the past, and about the unspoken threads that connected them all. Just before she drifted off to sleep, a soft knock came at the door. Emma froze, heart racing. Emma hesitated before opening the door. Her heart was still pounding from the unexpected knock. Outside stood Tom, holding a small, worn photo in his hand. His eyes held an expression she hadn't seen before, something serious, tinged with regret. "Hi, Emma," he said softly. "I didn't want to leave without showing you this." Emma took the photo from him, her fingers trembling slightly. It was old, faded around the edges, a snapshot of a much younger David and Tom, smiling broadly, arms thrown around each other like brothers. But there was something else in the photo, a folded note tucked into the corner. Emma carefully opened it. "David, always my best friend. I hope we grow up to face life as boldly as we do now." Emma looked up at Tom, confused. "Why are you giving me this?" Tom sighed. "Because I never got to give it to him back then. I thought he'd forgotten, but seeing him last night, I realized some memories can't be lost. They just linger. I wanted you to have it too, so you know what our friendship was, and nothing more." Emma felt a rush of relief, mixed with lingering curiosity. "And David?" Tom smiled faintly. "He's your husband, and he loves you. That's never changed. But he was also the boy in this photo, a boy who made mistakes, who had fears and dreams. Seeing him again reminded me of that." Emma nodded slowly, understanding the depth of what he was saying. There was no hidden agenda, no threat, just years of friendship and shared history finally finding closure. When Tom left, Emma closed the door and leaned against it, letting out a deep breath. The tension that had clung to the house for days began to fade, replaced by a quiet, reflective calm. She felt closer to David than she had in days, grateful for the honesty and transparency of what had unfolded. David emerged from the kitchen, carrying 2 mugs of hot chocolate. "Everything okay?" he asked, his voice gentle. Emma smiled and handed him the photo and note. "Tom came by. I think we understand each other a little better now." David studied the photo, his eyes softening. "That's us. Wow, it's been a long time." He looked at Emma, taking her hand in his. "I'm glad you're here, and that nothing's hidden between us." Emma rested her head on his shoulder, feeling the warmth of his hand in hers. "Me too. I was worried for a while, but everything's fine now." David kissed the top of her head. "See? Nothing from the past can touch us. We're here, together, and that's what matters." The rest of the evening passed peacefully. They laughed softly over memories, sipped hot chocolate, and let the quiet comfort of each other's presence settle over them. The unease that had shadowed the past few days felt like a distant echo, replaced by the steady, reassuring rhythm of their life together. Emma glanced at the photo on the coffee table. It captured a moment frozen in time, a memory of friendship and youth. But it also reminded her of something more important. Love, trust, and honesty could overcome any shadow of the past. That night, as they turned off the lights and slipped into bed, Emma felt a profound sense of gratitude. Life had a way of bringing the past back into the present, testing hearts and bonds. But love, when rooted in trust, always found its way through. David held her close, whispering softly, "No matter what comes, we face it together." Emma smiled, closing her eyes. She knew he meant it, and in that quiet, peaceful moment, all the fear, tension, and confusion melted away. The past had visited their doorstep, but it had left them stronger, closer, and more certain of what truly mattered. And Emma realized that some returns, though confusing at first, could lead to understanding, healing, and a deeper love than ever before.